Welcome to History Explained, where we illuminate the past to better understand our present. I'm your guide to your daily journey through the past to empower the future. Today is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. As we do every Thursday, we're exploring a fascinating cultural practice that has profoundly influenced human civilization. Today, we turn our attention to the Harlem Renaissance, one of the most vibrant and influential cultural movements in American history. Spanning roughly from 1918 to 1937, this extraordinary flowering of African American arts, literature, music, and intellectual thought centered in New York's Harlem neighborhood transformed American culture and challenged prevailing racial stereotypes. What makes the Harlem Renaissance particularly remarkable is how it represented a conscious effort by African Americans to define their own cultural identity and artistic expression after centuries of oppression. This movement produced lasting works of art while fostering a new sense of racial pride and cultural consciousness that would influence civil rights movements for generations. So let's explore this transformative cultural phenomenon, examining its origins in the Great Migration, its key figures and artistic achievements, its broader social and political significance, and its lasting impact on American culture and identity. The Harlem Renaissance emerged from the massive demographic shift known as the Great Migration, which saw approximately 6 million African Americans move from the rural South to northern cities between 1916 and 1970. New York's Harlem neighborhood became a primary destination for these migrants seeking economic opportunity and escape from Jim Crow segregation. By the 1920s, Harlem had become the largest urban African American community in the United States. This concentration of educated, ambitious Black Americans created the critical mass necessary for a cultural renaissance. Unlike the scattered rural communities of the South, Harlem provided the urban infrastructure and intellectual environment needed for artistic collaboration and innovation. The movement was also influenced by the return of African American soldiers from World War I. These veterans had experienced greater racial equality in Europe and returned home with new expectations for civil rights and social advancement. Their experiences abroad challenged the notion that racial discrimination was natural or inevitable. Intellectually, the Harlem Renaissance was shaped by the ideas of W.E.B. Du Bois, who had called for the development of a talented tenth of educated African Americans who would lead their race toward full equality. Du Bois' magazine, The Crisis, provided a platform for emerging writers and artists while promoting the idea that cultural achievement could combat racial prejudice. The movement's literary achievements were extraordinary. Langston Hughes emerged as perhaps the most celebrated poet of the Renaissance, creating works that celebrated African American culture while addressing themes of racial pride and social justice. His poem, The Negro Speaks of Rivers, became an anthem of Black identity and historical consciousness. Claude McKay's poetry, particularly his sonnet, If We Must Die, captured the defiant spirit of the era while addressing themes of resistance and dignity in the face of oppression. McKay's work influenced not only American literature but also anti-colonial movements worldwide, demonstrating the global impact of Harlem Renaissance thought. Zora Hurston brought a unique perspective to the movement through her anthropological background and celebration of rural Black folk culture. Her novel, Their Eyes Were Watching God, explored themes of gender, race, and identity with a complexity that was revolutionary for its time, though it was not fully appreciated until decades later. Jean Toomer's Cain, an experimental work combining poetry and prose, captured the complexity of African American experience during the transition from rural to urban life. The book's innovative structure and lyrical language established new possibilities for African American literary expression. The Renaissance also produced significant achievements in visual arts. Aaron Douglas developed a distinctive style that combined African artistic traditions with modernist techniques, creating powerful images that appeared in books, magazines, and murals throughout Harlem. His work helped establish a visual vocabulary for African American artistic expression. Augusta Savage emerged as both an accomplished sculptor and an influential teacher who mentored many younger artists. Despite facing racial discrimination in her attempts to study in Europe, she persevered to create works that celebrated African American beauty and dignity while challenging prevailing artistic conventions. Music was perhaps the most influential aspect of the Harlem Renaissance, with jazz becoming America's first truly original art form. Duke Ellington, based at Harlem's Cotton Club, created sophisticated compositions that elevated jazz from popular entertainment to serious artistic expression. His orchestra's innovative arrangements and Ellington's compositional genius established jazz as a legitimate classical music tradition. Louis Armstrong's revolutionary trumpet playing and charismatic personality made him one of America's first African-American cultural ambassadors. His innovations in improvisation and rhythm influenced not only jazz but all subsequent popular music, while his performances broke down racial barriers and challenged stereotypes about black performers. Bessie Smith, known as the Empress of the Blues, brought African-American musical traditions to mainstream audiences while maintaining the authentic emotional power that made the blues such a compelling art form. Her recordings sold millions of copies and established the commercial viability of African-American music. The Renaissance also fostered important intellectual and political discourse. Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association promoted black nationalism and pride in African heritage, though his views often conflicted with those of other Renaissance leaders. Garvey's emphasis on economic independence and racial pride influenced later civil rights and black power movements. Alain Locke, often called the Dean of the Harlem Renaissance, served as a crucial organizer and promoter of the movement. His anthology, The New Negro, helped define the Renaissance's goals and introduced many important writers to broader audiences. Locke's scholarship and advocacy were essential to the movement's success. The Renaissance created new spaces for African American social and cultural life. The Cotton Club, Savoy Ballroom, and Apollo Theater became legendary venues where black performers could showcase their talents, though some venues maintained discriminatory policies regarding audiences. These institutions nevertheless provided crucial platforms for artistic development. The movement also challenged prevailing notions of respectability and propriety within African American communities. While some leaders emphasized the importance of presenting dignified, educated images to combat racial stereotypes, others argued for authentic expression that included all aspects of black experience, including elements that white society might find uncomfortable. Women played crucial roles in the Harlem Renaissance, both as artists and as patrons. Figures like A'Lelia Walker, daughter of haircare entrepreneur Madam C.J. Walker, hosted salons that brought together artists, intellectuals, and patrons. These gatherings fostered collaboration and provided financial support for emerging artists. The Renaissance's influence extended beyond Harlem to other cities with significant African American populations. Chicago, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C. developed their own cultural movements inspired by Harlem's example, creating a national network of African American artistic and intellectual activity. However, the movement also faced internal tensions and external challenges. Class divisions within the African American community sometimes created conflicts between those who emphasized middle-class respectability and those who celebrated working-class culture. Additionally, white patronage, while providing essential financial support, sometimes came with expectations about the types of art that should be produced. The Great Depression of the 1930s effectively ended the Harlem Renaissance as economic hardship made artistic patronage less viable. Many artists struggled financially, and the optimistic spirit of the 1920s gave way to more urgent concerns about economic survival. Despite its relatively brief duration, the Harlem Renaissance had lasting impacts on American culture. It established African American artists as serious contributors to American intellectual and cultural life, challenging racist assumptions about black intellectual capacity and artistic ability. The movement's emphasis on racial pride and cultural authenticity influenced later civil rights movements, providing intellectual and cultural foundations for the struggle for equality. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X drew inspiration from Renaissance themes of dignity, resistance, and cultural pride. The Renaissance also influenced American popular culture more broadly. Jazz became America's classical music, while Harlem Renaissance literature entered the canonical curriculum of American schools and universities. The movement's celebration of urban African American culture helped shape modern American identity. Contemporary hip-hop culture shows clear connections to Harlem Renaissance themes and techniques. Like Renaissance artists, hip-hop creators use art to address social issues, celebrate cultural identity, and challenge mainstream assumptions about African American communities. The Harlem Renaissance demonstrated that cultural achievement could serve as a powerful tool for social change. By creating works of undeniable artistic merit, Renaissance artists forced broader American society to reconsider racist assumptions and recognize African American contributions to national culture. The movement also established important precedents for multicultural artistic expression in America. Its success paved the way for later cultural movements among other minority groups seeking to define their own artistic and intellectual traditions. The Harlem Renaissance stands as one of America's most important cultural movements, demonstrating the power of artistic expression to challenge social conventions and promote human dignity. Its legacy continues to inspire artists and activists seeking to use culture as a tool for social change and community empowerment. Thank you for joining us for this exploration of the Harlem Renaissance. Tomorrow, we'll be back with our Economic Milestones episode examining the stock market crash of 1929 and its role in triggering the Great Depression. If you enjoyed this journey through history, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell. What aspects of the Harlem Renaissance do you find most influential or relevant to contemporary cultural movements? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, I'm your guide for History Explained, where we believe that understanding yesterday is the key to navigating tomorrow.